Hey guys, welcome back to Casual Commander. Today I'm coming at you with my Abzan Kethis the Hidden Hand deck. This is a legendary graveyard deck. Kethis can make your legendary spells cost one less. His other effect, which you can exile two legendaries from your graveyard, and then you can now cast legendaries from your graveyard for the rest of the turn. That's an effect I don't really use a whole lot. The one reduction is usually enough for me, and we usually use other cards to get to stuff out of the graveyard. But anyway, let's get it going. So the mana is I only run basics and I got 13 of each. Doing that saves me money, and also running 39 total lands makes sure that I'm like pretty often I'm gonna see lands in my opening hand, which means I don't have to mulligan as many times. So yeah. To the actual deck, so Stitcher Supplier, I think that's a great if you're using a deck that needs to mill itself. Stitcher Supplier, I think, is a great card. Azusa Lost But Seeking, play two digital lands, legendary, that's great. Chatterfang, new card out of Modern Horizons 2. Forest Walk, basically can make double the amount of tokens that you're already making, and then can boost something by sacrificing scrolls, or actually lowering the toughness of something and possibly killing it if it's something you want gone. Eternal Witness, everyone knows Eternal Witness is good in a graveyard deck. Kumbal, legendary creature, can give you some life gain and can tick your opponents down if they don't deal with that after a while. Ramanop Excavator, it's like a budget Crucible Worlds. I have a Crucible Worlds, but I took it out because having a creature with this ability is actually better than the Crucible Worlds. Some people might not think that because they're like, oh, well, creatures are more easily destroyed or whatever, or taken care of. But in my opinion, this deck has better synergy with creatures than it does with artifacts in our graveyard. Veto, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. He's also a legendary. Keep in mind, I got some synergies with the human type, with legendaries, obviously, and then with creatures like power 2 or less or power 1 or less, there's some synergies in there. So every creature that you see, keep in mind it might have more synergies than just what you see. Corpse Jack Menace, this is a card that I love to run in any Golgari deck. Doubles your +1/+1 counters. Alenda the Dusk Rose, this is a card that I probably should have been running a long time ago, but it is a $30 card, but it's definitely worth it in this deck. Whenever creature dies, get a +1/+1 counter on her, and then whenever she dies, whatever her power was, you make that many 1/1 white vampires with lifelink. She also has lifelink, so that's good. Lathiel, we do gain some life in this deck, so at each end step, whatever life you gain this turn, you can make that into +1/+1 counters and put those on your creatures. Taste of Karlov doubles up dying triggers. World Shaper, I think this is one of the best mill cards. When it attacks, you can mill 3, and then when it dies, all your lands from your graveyard go onto the battlefield tap, which is really good. Ageless Entity, because like I said, we are gaining a lot of life, big chunks of life. This can put that many +1/+1 counters on it. I think this is a really cool card. Maja Bredegard Protector gives your creatures a little bonus, and then an anthem, I guess you'd say. And then whenever land enters, you make a 1/1 white human warrior token. Keep in mind, like I said, this fits the criteria. Legendary creature, power 2 or less, and is a human. That's all good things. Mazarek, I have another deck that's a Jund deck that uses this card a lot better, but this card is still good legendary. We do have sack outlets in this deck, and we do like +1/+1 counters, so that's really good. Obnixilus the Fallen, I think this is a great card. Landfall, whenever land comes in, target player loses 3 life, and then you put 3 +1/+1 counters on him. He can get really beefy pretty quick in this deck. Sheree, Shizo's Caretaker, this is the card I was talking about. Anything that has power 1 or less. From my understanding, this is where, comment section, if you guys watch this video, I'd like you to correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm pretty sure that, like, let's say Alenda the Dusk Rose, if she were to hit the graveyard, you technically could get her back because her power when she hits the graveyard is not actually whatever it was on the field, it's 1 when she hits the graveyard. It'd be different if the card said whenever a creature dies with power 1 or less, that'd be different. But this says whenever creature power 1 or less is put into your graveyard from the battlefield. So I think I can get it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. But this is an overall solid card, and we have a lot of creatures, or a decent amount in this deck that have power 1 or less. Thalise, Reverent Medium, she basically, just like the squirrel, basically can make double your tokens, because our tokens in this deck don't really matter all that much. They're normally all 1/1s. There's one card coming up in a bit that actually makes bigger tokens, but that's about it. So we don't really care. Gitrog, this card's amazing. A 6/6 for 5 that has Death Touch that lets you play an additional land, and then whenever a land hits your graveyard from anywhere, draw a card. Now that's not per land, that's just at an instance. So if you had an effect that says mill 3, you'd only get to draw 1 card off that. Like if you milled 3 lands off 1 effect, you would still only get to draw 1 card. The downside is you have to sacrifice land at your upkeep, but that's okay because Gitrog wants that because that gives us an additional draw. So great card and legendary. Underrealm Lich, these two like work in tandem with each other. They're perfect combo partners. So Underrealm Lich says if you would draw a card, instead look at the top 3, put one into your hand, the rest in your graveyard. So you can easily just mill like almost your whole deck and get your graveyard just full of stuff by doing that. He does have the effect of pay for life. Underrealm Lich gains indestructible instead of turn, tap it. I did learn recently from one of my buddies that you can attack with this card and not have the ability to tap it, but you can still get the pay for life to make him indestructible effect, which is nice. I think this is a great card. This is like what Golgari, I think, needed. Golgari's a really good tribe, I know that, but at the same time, like cards like this, I wish there was a few more mill cards. I really do, but Underrealm Lich is great. Darien, King of Keldor. Whenever you're dealt damage, you make that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. He's a legendary I wasn't playing until recently, but I think I was going to try to put him in a different deck, but I looked at it and I was like, he's actually kind of perfect for what I want to do. And he's also a human. I don't remember how you say this, Jugan or Yugon, I don't remember, but the Rising Star, whenever he dies, you distribute that many, you distribute 5 +1/+1 counters on any number of target creatures. We can increase death triggers, that's nice. He's a legendary, that's nice. Kakusho, the Evening Star, another Dragon Spirit. When it dies, each opponent loses 5 life. You gain life equal to life lost this way. We can double that up. We also have good life gain synergies. Obnixilis, the Unshackled. Obnixilis Unshackled. He has Alenda's ability of whenever a creature dies, he gets a +1/+1. But instead of like, making tokens or whatever, when he dies, he just says whenever an opponent searches their library, that player has to sacrifice a creature and loses 10 life. Obviously, we don't have to do that, but he's a great card. Requiem Angel. So this is a card that like I was kind of on the fence about of whether I want to put it in here or not. I think it'll be good because we do sack a lot of our stuff or kill a lot of our own creatures. Whenever a non-spirit dies that I control, I can make a 1/1 white spirit. That'll give us some token production. I don't play Anointed Procession here. I kind of ran out of room, and instead of having a token doubler, which I already have 2 of those on creatures, I'd rather just have more cards that make tokens. Sun Titan can grab stuff back from our graveyard. That's good. Yosei the Morningstar, the last Dragon Spirit that we're playing in here because of the colors. When it dies, you can tap 5. Target player skips their untap step, and then you can tap 5 target permanents that player controls. So basically, you would tap down 5 things that don't untap. We can double that death trigger up, which is really nice. Angel of Glory Rise. So this is why the human count matters a little bit in this deck. I think we have like 8 or 9, but this card, I mean, think about it. So you pay 7, and we might even have to pay 7. We might just be able to bring this back for next to nothing. But whenever it enters, you exile all zombies. We only run 2 zombies in this deck. Stitcher Supplier, Underrealm Lich. Even though Underrealm Lich is great, if it was by some reason it was on the field when this came out, I'd live with it. But we return all humans from our graveyard to the battlefield. That's going to be pretty good value. Beladros Witherbloom. This is a great legendary that I'm really happy. I loved Strixhaven, like as far as the lore and the ideas about it. I think the mechanics overall sucked. Like Learn, I think, is a stupid mechanic. Honestly, if Wizards of the Coast ever watches this video, I would tell you guys, like, stop trying to make like the next like cool mechanic just as a gimmick for like that set. Instead, just focus on cool lore, cool cards that actually do something and are productive. And think about what colors they go in, what types the creatures are, and that'll really, I mean, whether you guys like it or not, Commander's the most popular format, or whether they want to disagree with that or not. So anyway, he can make tokens at each upkeep, which is nice. Yeah, they have a little life gain when they die, but the big thing, pay 10 life and basically get a Sword of Feast and Famine and untap all your lands. You can only do that once per turn, but you can do that on each opponent's turn. We don't really have anything that we would do on our opponent's turn, but still, pay 10 life, which, like I said, we got some life gain in here. Won't be a problem. We can really use that. Elishnorn, my buddies that I play with hate Elishnorn. It's probably my favorite Praetor. It's either that or Shieldred. I'm not sure. But Elishnorn, I think, is really cool, and I get that it like wipes out like weenie decks, but I don't know. I mean, everyone needs to understand, like, that's a downside of, like, you playing a bunch of small tokens. Like, if you're going to, like, do, like, oh, I'll turn my tokens into mana and get infinite mana, or I'll sack and, do, like, aristocrats, like, stuff like that. It's like, there has to be cards that counter that, and Elishnorn can counter that. I think that's fair. Amiria Shepherd, I think this is a great card that I don't understand why it's so cheap, because, like, because we're a graveyard deck that plays white, this card's amazing. We can get stuff back. If we play a plains, we can grab something that's a permanent from our graveyard, put it on the battlefield. If we play a land that's not a plains, we just get a non-land permanent and put it back into our hand. But that's okay. Like, that's still good value, and this card's really good. Moldgraph Monstrosity. So I just found out about this card. I didn't know it existed, but it's an 8/8 insect for 7 that has trample, but when it dies, you exile and then get 2 random creatures from a graveyard back to the battlefield. I think that's really good value. Shieldred, like I said, probably is either this or Elish Norton is my favorite Praetor. At the beginning of your upkeep, return to our creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then each opponent's upkeep, they have to sacrifice a creature, and it has Swamp Walk. I think this card's great. People dog on this like it's not still good. This card is still good. It's just obviously if your opponents have a lot of creatures, it's not as good. But if you whittle them down and they only got like their commander left or one big creature, whatever, Shieldred's great. Trostani Summoner, this is the card that interacts well with Shizo's Caretaker, because we can play this, and then if we have a way to sack this, because this thing makes 3 different tokens when it comes out, a 4/4 Rhino with Trample, a 3/3 Centaur, and then a 2/2 White Knight with Vigilance. But yeah, if we can like do this twice a turn, basically, make double the token, I just think that's really good. And I'm glad I finally found a deck that this can really shine in. I think I was trying to play this in a different deck before, but this, I think it now will shine in this deck. Vishkal, this is our sack outlet. I used to play Razaketh, but my buddies all hated Razaketh, and I figured this actually kind of synergizes better. Razaketh is, can tutor stuff, but honestly, tutoring's kind of lame, I feel like, in Commander. I mean, there's certain cards. I don't not play Razaketh in any decks. I play him in my Kalia deck, but other than that, I try to keep the tutors to a minimum. Vishkal, whenever he sacks a creature, whatever that creature's power was, you put that many +1/+1 counters on him, and then you can remove all +1/+1 counters to do -1/-1 to a creature until end of turn, like, however many +1s you had. Vishkal can get rid of stuff, but for the most part, I would just say it's a big flying lifelinker that's a sack outlet that can get gigantic. Okay, so that's it for the creatures. Sorceries, I'll try to get through this pretty fast. Cultivate, Debts of the Deathless, we can get a lot of lands, that way we can have a lot of mana to power this up to finish off our opponents, and even if we can't finish them, we have ways to interact with the amount of life that we gain off this. Eerie Ultimatum, I'm really happy this card does not exile itself after you use it, and this card's amazing. Like, out of all the Ultimatum cards, this card does what these 3 colors are trying to do. It's like a godsend for this deck. Explosive Veggies, people like the nitpicky nerds say this card's not good anymore. I disagree. I mean, granted, I play 10 3-color decks, so for me it's perfect because, like Skyshroud Claim, you get 2 forests untapped. This card, you'll be getting, like the lands that you need, like different colors tapped, but I'd still rather get the lands I need. Farseek, grab anything but a forest. Genesis Wave in a graveyard deck. I mean, this card's great even in not a graveyard deck, but in a graveyard deck, this card's amazing because we can put a lot of mana in the Genesis Wave and just see what happens. Graceful Restoration, this is a new card. What I like about it is, yeah, you can bring 1 creature back with a +1/+1 counter on it, or you can grab 2 creatures with power 2 or less. I like that value for 5. Primeval's Glorious Rebirth, this is like the motivation for me making this deck. Get all legendary permanents from your graveyard back to the battlefield. You do have to control a legendary creature or planeswalker. I don't run planeswalkers. Rampant Growth, know about that. Reanimate, know about that. Best like revival spell. Skyshroud Claim, I already mentioned that. Victimize, nitpicky nerds, once again, they crap on this card. I think this card's really good. 2 creatures for the price of 1, I'll take it. Alhammart's Archive, we gain a lot of life, and being able to draw cards is nice. Doubling that, and it's legendary. Alter Dementia, good sack outlet, and mills ourself. The Medallions, I play all 3 of these in every single deck that I have. Perpetual Timepiece, another way to mill ourselves. The Ozolith, because we want to hold under our +1/+1 counters. Aura Shards to pop stuff. Kethis Crusade to buff our stuff. Death's Presence can buff our stuff when creatures die. Moldvine Reclamation draws cards. Primeval Bounty gains a lot of life, and Congregate gains a lot of life. Alright, I think that's it, guys. Sorry I had to speed up, but have a